How do you measure the deep end for a new liner in your swimming pool? Well, I mean, there's a couple of methods that you could use in order to get your overall depth measurement of the deep end. The way that I've always done it, and you could probably do something similar. So, the first thing that you would do is you would get your telescopic pole. Every swimming pool has a telescopic pole. You use this for skimming leaves and vacuuming the bottom. And what I would do is I would extend it such that it extends out over the deep end floor. So, to give you an example, let's say the swimming pool had a diving board. I think everybody understands the typical orientation for a diving board. So, you would take the telescopic pole and you would lay it down on the diving board, so it's sitting flat on the diving board and extending 4, 5, 6 feet or so over the deep end floor. So, you have one person or a helper more or less just stand on top of that pole so it doesn't roll around as you're getting your depth measurement. Now, again, when you get the overall depth, everybody kind of has their own method. The way that I've always used is you're using a tape measure like this, a long, flexible tape measure, in order to take various measurements around the pool. So, what I have always done is I would just take my key ring or a key ring, I attach it to the end of this, I take out a bunch of extra tape measure, 30, 40 feet, such that it's loose. And I take that, and from standing on the side of the pool, I throw that over the telescopic pole. Once the tape measure is over the telescopic pole, the weight of the keys will allow the tape measure to sink all the way to the bottom. So basically what you do is you're holding on to one end of the tape measure and you're kind of jigging it back and forth until you can get the keys to just rest on the bottom of the deep end. And at that point, I will very carefully take a measurement from where the tape measure meets the water level. That's the easiest way. You need to be pretty specific with your measurements for a new vinyl liner. So by measuring from the floor to the water level, I can get a pretty accurate measurement. Then at that point, I measure from the water level to the coping track, and I add those two numbers together. Be very important that you do that correctly. If you do this wrong, your liner isn't going to fit, so you have to be careful. But it's pretty easy to get the depth measurement from the bottom of the deep end to the water level, and then you can just quickly add however many inches it is from the water level to the coping track, and that's the overall depth of your liner. Now, there is a little bit of fudge factor, so to speak. In a previous video, I talked about sometimes taking 1/4 inch or up to maybe 1/2 of an inch off of the shallow end floor measurements. And the reason why is the liner has a little bit of stretch. You can't have too much liner. It's okay to have not quite enough liner such that when the sun hits it, it kind of melts into place and you won't have any wrinkles. In the shallow end, that number is only 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. But in the deep end, there's a lot more vinyl available to stretch into place. So the numbers that I would typically use is, let's say I measured 8 feet exactly for the depth of this vinyl liner. I might write that measurement down as 7 foot 11 inches. Maybe in an extreme case, if the floor is very uneven, I might even take a 2nd inch off of the overall depth measurement, with the idea that on a warm sunny day, the vinyl will have no problem melting into place. You will have no extra material at all, which means you'll have 0 wrinkles in your liner. And because there's so much vinyl material available in the deep end, the amount of stretch required to compensate for 1 inch or 2 inch in the overall depth is very little overall, and it will put very little overall strain on the liner. So there's no concern about damaging the liner or shortening its life because you wrote the overall depth down as 1 inch or 2 inch less than what it actually is. It really is an advantage to you to do that, but there is a point of diminishing returns. You certainly wouldn't want to just say, oh, that's 6 inches less than that, and count that it's going to melt into place. I mean, it probably would on a hot sunny day, but that would be far too much stretch. You really want the liner to fit as closely as possible without having too much liner in any place. So the overall depth minus 1 inch to 2 inches is how I would go about measuring an in-ground vinyl liner deep end floor. If you found this information helpful, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.